Tommy had to squint because the lights above the auction platform were so bright. He was in pain in his legs because he had been standing for so long. His wrists' energy cuffs buzzed and made his arms feel tingly. He was 9 years old, but he had learned not to cry anymore. The guards were angry when you cried. Lot 47, yelled the auctioneer, who had purple skin and 4 arms. One child of man. Young, healthy, and great for any job you need done. Tommy looked out at the people. There were a lot of aliens, some of them were tall, some were short, some had scales, and some had fur. Everyone looked at him like he was something in a store window. Some were taking notes on tablets that lit up. Some people pointed and whispered to each other. His stomach made a noise. They hadn't given him food since yesterday. The cage where they kept him smelled like chemicals and fear. There were other kids in cages, but the guards always made sure to keep them apart before the auctions. Tommy thought about whether he would ever see his mom again. 3 weeks ago, the slavers took him from the colony where his family worked. He didn't even know if his parents were still alive. 5,000 credits for the first bid, the auctioneer said. A fat alien in fancy robes raised one of its tentacles. 5,000. Another voice from the back yelled, 6,000. Every time someone made a bid, Tommy's heart sank. Someone was going to buy him. Someone was going to own him like a pet or a piece of equipment. He bit his lip hard to keep from crying. At that point, he saw something odd in the back corner of the auction hall. He thought it was a statue at first, but then it moved a little and Tommy knew it was alive. A dragon. It was a real dragon with red scales that looked like they were glowing in the dark. Even though it was crouched down, the creature was huge, at least 20 feet tall. There were thick chains around its neck and legs that were connected to metal posts that were driven into the floor. The chains hummed with energy, which was probably electric or magnetic. The dragon's eyes were a warm amber color, like honey in the sun. The dragon was looking right at him. Before the slavers came, Tommy had seen pictures of dragons in his school books. Books about the history of the Earth said they were just stories and legends. But the Galactic archives told different stories. It was true that dragons existed, but they were very rare. A long time ago, in a big war, most of them died out. The few that lived mostly stayed on their own on faraway planets where no one bothered them. What was going on with the dragon? Why did they put it in chains? 10,000 credits, someone yelled, bringing Tommy back to reality. 12,000. 15. The bids kept going up. Tommy's mouth got dry. Someone who was willing to pay that much probably didn't want him for anything good. Rich aliens didn't buy slaves for that much money unless they had big plans for them. Plans that don't work. The dragon moved again. The claws scraped against the metal floor, making a noise like nails on a chalkboard. Some people in the crowd looked back nervously, but most didn't pay attention. They had probably seen the dragon before. Maybe the owners of the station brought it to all the auctions as a decoration. Look at how strong we are, we even have a dragon in chains. Tommy looked into the dragon's eyes one more time. There was something there. Not just instinct but real intelligence. Comprehension. The dragon was aware of what was going on. It knew that Tommy was being sold. And for some reason Tommy knew the dragon didn't like it. Tommy felt less alone for a moment. 20,000 credits. A new voice broke through the crowd. Everyone looked. A tall, thin alien pushed its way to the front. It had on a clean white coat like a doctor. It had pale gray skin and big black eyes with no pupils or color, just darkness. Tommy counted too many teeth when it smiled. Dr. Vex, the auctioneer said in a happy voice. Always a pleasure, sir. 20,000 from Dr. Vex of the Vrelin Institute. People in the crowd started to murmur. A few aliens stepped back a little. Others nodded in agreement. Tommy didn't know what the Vrelin Institute was, but the fear in the room told him all he needed to know. It was a bad place. The auctioneer asked, "Any other bids?" But no one raised their hand. 20,000 going once, going twice, and sold. Dr. Vex gets lot 47. Tommy's legs began to shake. Guards walked over to the platform to take off his cuffs and give him to his new owner. Dr. Vex walked closer, still with that awful smile on his face. "Come along, specimen," the doctor said in perfect English. His voice was soft, almost soothing, but it made Tommy's skin crawl. "We have a lot of work to do as a team. You will help science move forward in ways you can't even begin to imagine." A guard unlocked Tommy's cuffs and pushed him toward Dr. Vex. Tommy tripped and almost fell. The doctor put one cold hand on his shoulder. "Be careful now. We can't start with you hurt." Tommy looked back at the dragon one more time, full of fear. The creature's eyes were fixed on him, and the heat of their gaze made the air feel hot. The dragon's claws scratched the metal floor. The chains that held it together made a lot of noise. Tommy thought he saw something in those amber eyes for a split second. Do you recognize it? Matt. A promise? Then guards pushed him forward, and Dr. Vex took him away from the auction platform. They went through a door into a white hallway that smelled like cleaning products and medicine. The door hissed shut behind them, blocking Tommy's view of the dragon. Now he was by himself. All by myself with the monster in the white coat. As they walked, Dr. Vex hummed a happy tune. You're very lucky, Sample. Most of the kids who are sold at these auctions end up working in mines or factories. They do boring, pointless work until they die. But you? You're going to help with research that will change the world. Your pain will have a reason. Tommy's heart raced in his chest. He wanted to run, but there was no place to go. There were locked doors and white walls on both sides of the hallway that went on forever. He was still on a space station full of aliens who wouldn't help him, even if he got away from Dr. Vex. They got to an elevator. Dr. Vex pushed a button and the doors opened. The doctor told the elevator computer, Level 7. Laboratory Wing. Tommy closed his eyes and thought about the dragon as the elevator started to go up. Tommy really needed what was in those amber eyes right now. Oh. There was a creature on this station that was strong enough to break free. A creature that didn't like what it saw happening. Tommy wasn't sure if the dragon would help him. He wasn't even sure if the dragon could help him. But that was all he had. When the elevator doors opened, Dr. Vex pushed Tommy forward into his new nightmare on Level 7. Tommy had never been in a colder place than the lab. Not just cold, but the air made him shiver. It was cold in a deeper way, like a place where bad things happened and no one cared. Dr. Vex pushed him through automatic doors into a big white room. The walls, floor, ceiling, and even the equipment were all white or silver. There were bright lights hanging from above that made everything feel too open and visible. In all that clean whiteness, Tommy's dirty clothes and face looked even worse. Take off those rags, Dr. Vex said, pointing to a metal bench. Put on the gown for the exam. There it is. Tommy's hands shook as he picked up the thin gray dress. It was rough and scratchy like paper. Can I have some space? He asked in a low voice. Dr. Vex laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Privacy? You don't have any privacy anymore, specimen. You don't have any rights, dignity, or future except what I choose to give you. Change now, or I'll have the guards do it for you. Tommy quickly got dressed, trying not to cry. The dress didn't cover him very well and had no back. He felt open and weak. He had lost his shoes. The metal floor was very cold on his bare feet. Much better, Dr. Vex said as he typed something on a screen that was floating in the air. Now, come stand under the scanner. A mechanical arm came down from the ceiling. There was a round thing on the end that lit up blue. The doctor told Tommy to stand where he was, and the machine started to move around him, making a soft humming sound. The blue light made his skin tingle all over. Interesting, Dr. Vex said quietly as he looked at the readings on his screen. Your bone density is great for your age. Muscle growth is good enough. Neural pathways are very active. Yes, you'll be fine for the tests on pain thresholds. Threshold of pain? Tommy's voice broke. What does that mean? It means, my young friend, that we're going to find out exactly how much pain a child can take before different systems start to break down. The research is very useful. You see, the Galactic Medical Council has very strict rules about testing. But those rules don't apply to specimens that were bought. Legal loopholes are great things. Tommy could see other cells through the clear walls of the exam room. A little alien creature with big eyes was huddled in the corner of one, rocking back and forth. In another, Tommy saw something that looked like a giant bug lying completely still. He couldn't tell if it was alive or dead. At least 6 other cells were there, and all of them had creatures in different states of pain. What did they do wrong? Tommy whispered while looking at the other prisoners. Wrong? Dr. Vex looked like he didn't know what was going on. They didn't do anything wrong. Like you, they're research subjects. I have to admit that most of them are no longer useful. You can only do so many tests before the data stops being useful. A younger Vrelin in a lab coat came into the room. This one seemed nervous and kept looking at Tommy with what might have been pity. Dr. Vex, the equipment is ready for the first tests, the assistant said. Great job, Cass. Let's start with basic neural mapping and then move on to levels of pain response. Sir, maybe we should give the specimen some time to get used to things first? The stress hormones from the auction could change our baseline readings. Dr. Vex turned to his assistant with a look of cold anger. Kess, if you can't follow the right scientific steps, I'm sure there are dozens of other researchers who would be happy to take your place. Should I get in touch with them? Kess looked down. No, sir. I'm sorry. Starting neural mapping now. They tied Tommy to a metal table for an exam. The straps were tight on his wrists, ankles, and chest. He was completely still. More mechanical arms came down from the ceiling above him, each with its own set of tools and gadgets. Dr. Vex said in that awful happy voice, "This first test will measure how your brain reacts to different things. Don't move." One of the mechanical arms reached out with a long needle. Tommy's eyes got big. "Hold on. Please. I don't want." The needle went into his arm. He felt pain like lightning. He yelled. "Interesting," Dr. Vex said as he looked at his screens. "The way people react to pain at the injection site is normal. Cortisol levels have gone up. Heart rate is going up. Everything is fine. A different needle. This one is in his other arm." Tommy yelled again. "Please stop. It hurts." "Of course it hurts," Dr. Vex said in a calm voice. "That's kind of the point, specimen. How else can we check how someone reacts to pain without hurting them? Now let's turn up the heat." The mechanical arms changed. This time, instead of needles, they made small devices that stuck to Tommy's skin. Dr. Vex pushed a button on his control pad. Electricity flowed through Tommy's body. His muscles tensed up very quickly. His jaw was so tight that he couldn't even scream. The pain was everywhere, hurting every nerve. It came to a stop. Tommy was crying and gasping for air. Dr. Vex said, "Level 1 electrical stimulus produces expected muscular response," while writing down the information. "Subject is still awake. Going up to level 2. No. Please. I'll do whatever. I'll do my best. I'll be fine. Please just stop." Dr. Vex didn't even look up from his computer screens. "Your help doesn't matter, specimen. This isn't a punishment. It's science." The power came back on, and this time it was stronger. The white walls echoed Tommy's scream. Blaze's head shot up 3 levels down in a reinforced holding cell. The dragon had been sitting still for hours, saving energy and waiting. It didn't know what for. Maybe for death. Maybe for a chance at freedom that would never come. But then it heard that sound. A scream. A scream from a kid. Dragons could hear very well. The station's ventilation system connected all the floors and carried sounds through metal ducts and passages. Most animals wouldn't have been able to hear the sound. But Blaze heard everything. Every word. Every scream. The dragon's eyes opened all the way, and the amber irises started to shine. The temperature inside began to go up. Dr. Vex kept doing his experiments in the lab. Shocks from electricity. Injections of chemicals. Very hot or very cold. Test of pressure. Tommy begged, screamed, and cried, but the doctor never stopped. Never even stopped. The assistant, Kess, kept working, but he looked more and more uncomfortable. He shook his hands a little as he changed the equipment. "How long will this session last?" Kess asked in a low voice. Dr. Vex said, "Until we have enough baseline data. I'd say at least another hour. Next we'll talk about the neural disruptors. Those are really interesting. They make the person's brain feel pain without actually hurting them. Very effective." Tommy couldn't believe that anything could hurt more than what he was already going through. But when Dr. Vex turned on the neural disruptors, he found out he was wrong. This pain was different. It was deeper and more personal. It felt like his own mind was attacking him from the inside. His screams got louder and louder. More desperate. The temperature in Blaze's cell rose by 1 degree every 3 levels. The dragon pushed against the magnetic restraints, not trying to break them yet, but getting closer to the barrier. It hurt when it touched the magnetic field, but Blaze hardly noticed. The dragon was keeping track. Counting down the seconds. Taking note of the screams. Counting every second this child was in pain while Blaze was in chains. People who worked at the station walked by the holding cell and saw something strange. The air around the dragon was full of shimmering heat waves. The scales of the creature shone softly, like metal heating up in a forge. "Should we tell someone about this?" one worker asked nervously. Another person said, "It's always hot around the dragon. Just don't go near the cell. Those restraints can hold anything." But they were wrong. There was something waking up inside Blaze's old chest. Something that had been sleeping for 300 years. After hunters killed its own hatchling, the dragon spent hundreds of years in quiet meditation. It had promised itself that it would never feel or care again. Pain came from caring. Love caused loss. But Blaze learned something important when he heard Tommy scream. Some things were worth the hurt. Some things had to be done no matter what it cost. The dragon's claws slowly stretched out and scratched the metal floor. As Blaze's body temperature kept going up, the magnetic restraints sparked and crackled. Tommy's voice was getting hoarse from yelling in the lab. It had been 20 minutes. Then 30. Then 35. Dr. Vex was so interested in his data that he couldn't stop looking at it. At exactly 36 minutes, Tommy let out a scream that was high-pitched, breaking, and completely hopeless. It was the sound of someone who had given up and couldn't take it anymore. The scream went through the ventilation system and 3 levels of the station structure, straight into Blaze's cell. And something inside the dragon broke. Not weak. Not giving up. Control. Tommy didn't think he could hurt anymore. He believed he had hit a limit, a point where his body would stop working and stop feeling. But Dr. Vex kept showing him he was wrong. The neural disruptors were the worst of all. They didn't leave any marks. The doctor couldn't see anything that was broken. But they made Tommy's brain think that every nerve in his body was on fire. It was like being on fire, drowning, and freezing all at the same time, but it was happening in his head where no one could help him. Interesting, Dr. Vex said softly as he looked at the holographic readouts that were floating around Tommy's exam table. The brain sends out very clear pain signals when it is properly stimulated. Kes, check out these neural patterns. So beautiful. The younger assistant, Kes, didn't say anything. He stood at the back of the lab looking down at his feet. His hands were so tight around his data pad that his knuckles turned white. I told you to look at these patterns. Dr. Vex got angry. Kes moved closer to the screens and jerked his head up. Yes, sir. Very, very interesting. Your enthusiasm is not impressive, Dr. Vex said in a cold voice. Maybe you're too soft for real science work. Tommy could barely hear what they were saying. Everything had come down to pain and the desperate need for it to stop. He had stopped thinking about his mother, his home, or getting away. He could only think about getting through the next second and then the next and then the next. Please, he said softly. His throat hurt from all the yelling. Please, I can't do it anymore. Dr. Vex turned a dial on his control panel. Human specimens are very tough. Your readings show a lot of distress, but all of your vital systems are still working. We can keep going for a while longer. The strength of the neural disruptor grew. Tommy's back bent against the restraints. His scream was broken and desperate, and it didn't even sound like a person anymore. 36 minutes. That's how long he had been lying on this table. 36 minutes that seemed like 36 hours. 36 years. 36 lives. Blaze had been counting every second in the reinforced holding cell 3 levels below. Torture for 2,160 seconds. Because the dragon had such good hearing, it could hear everything. Every whimper, every plea, and every scream. The sounds traveled through the air conditioning system like a twisted delivery system made just to annoy the dragon. Blaze tried to ignore it at first. Tried to go back to the way ancient dragons used to meditate. Look for the quiet place inside. Let the world fade away. But there were some sounds that couldn't be ignored. For 36 minutes, the temperature inside the dragon had been steadily rising. The magnetic restraints that kept Blaze in place were getting red hot. The warning lights on the cell's control panel flashed urgent messages that no one was paying attention to. Workers at the station had left the area around the holding cell. The heat was getting too much to handle. One engineer had tried to get to the control panel to check the systems, but the heat stopped him from getting within 10 feet. He yelled to his boss, "We need to report this." Report what? That the dragon is hot? It's always warm. Just close off this part and let it cool down. But it wasn't getting any cooler. It was getting hotter. Blaze's scales had changed color from their usual deep red to a bright orange red, like metal in a blacksmith's forge. The dragon's eyes were so bright that they lit up the whole cell. With each breath, small wisps of smoke came out of the dragon's nose. Blaze was thinking back. The dragon had a baby 300 years ago. A little red dragon that is less than a year old and still learning how to fly and how to control fire without hurting itself. Blaze loved that baby more than anything else in the world. Then the hunters showed up. They needed dragon bones for weapons, dragon scales for armor, and dragon hearts for medicine. They followed Blaze's family to a remote valley in the mountains and attacked them at night. Blaze had been in a fight. They killed a lot of them. But there were too many of them, and the dragon didn't know what to do with their weapons like electromagnetic nets, neural suppressors, and plasma cannons. There was no way out for the hatchling. It yelled for its mother. Made a sound that was scared, hopeless, and broken-hearted all at once. Blaze was stuck in nets and couldn't move. Can't help. Couldn't protect the one thing that mattered. The dragon had to watch as hunters killed its young. Blaze promised himself that he would never care about anything again after that day. Caring hurt. Loss came from love. For 300 years, the dragon had been alone, avoiding all contact and slowly dying inside while its body stayed alive. Up until today. Until Tommy screamed. That scream, the one that happened exactly 36 minutes in, sounded just like Blaze's hatchling did 300 years ago. The same tone. The same need. The same sound as someone who couldn't take it anymore but had to. A part of the dragon's heart broke open. Not the cold, lifeless thing that had been there for hundreds of years. Something that is older. Something that had been asleep and waiting. Reason. It was said that the magnetic restraints could hold an animal 3 times the size of a dragon. They had been tested a lot. They were unbreakable according to all safety standards. But the specs didn't take into account how strong dragon fire could be. They didn't think about how 300 years of anger would finally find a target. They didn't think about how old instincts told them that some things were worth dying for. The temperature inside Blaze went up a lot. The restraints changed from red-hot to white-hot. The metal started to melt. Dr. Vex was getting ready to turn the neural disruptor up to its highest setting in the lab. "Let's see what happens when we really test human tolerance," he said with a smile. Tommy's eyes had rolled back in his head. He was barely aware of what was going on and was only acting on instinct to survive. When the disruptor reached its highest level, he let out one last scream that was raw, breaking, and final. That scream went through the air conditioning system and into Blaze's cell. And the dragon's chains broke. The holding cell was covered in molten metal. The generators that made the magnetic field got too hot and caught fire. All over the station, emergency alarms started going off. For the first time in months, Blaze stood up straight. The dragon's wings were so wide that they almost touched the walls of the cell. There was smoke coming out of its nose. Its eyes were on fire, which had been building up for 300 years. The door to the cell was made of reinforced titanium alloy, which was meant to keep anything inside. Blaze looked at it for exactly 1 second before letting out a breath. At its hottest, dragon fire can melt through the hulls of ships. There was no way the door could win. It became liquid metal and fell to the floor in a puddle. The security guards at the station were running toward the holding area, but they stopped when they saw what was coming down the hall. A fully grown red dragon, with scales that glowed like the heart of a sun and eyes that burned with purpose. It moved with terrifying speed and grace. The creature no longer looked like a prisoner. It looked like something old and unstoppable. "Open fire," yelled the captain of security. The corridor was lit up by energy weapons. Blaze was hit directly by plasma bolts that could go through armor. The dragon didn't even stop. The heat coming off of its body was so strong that the energy bolts just disappeared before they could do any harm. In the air, bullets melted. Blaze didn't waste time fighting the guards. The dragon just ran through them, pushing them aside like toys. It was completely focused. It was clear where it was going. Level 7. The wing for labs. Where a child was yelling. The dragon hit the emergency stairs and started to climb. The heat and weight made each step crack. The metal handrails melted where Blaze's claws touched them. 1 level. 2 levels. 3 levels. Alarms were going off all over the station now. There were flashing red lights all over the place. Automated voices said, "Critical containment breach. Everyone needs to leave right away. This is not a drill." Dr. Vex heard the alarms in the lab but didn't pay attention to them. He was too focused on what he was doing. He said, "Just a few more minutes of data collection." Kes was looking at the security feed on his data pad. His face had turned completely white. "Doctor, you need to see this." "Not now, Kes. Can't you see I'm—" "Doctor." Kes's voice broke with fear. "The dragon is free. It's coming here. It's coming to this level." Finally, Dr. Vex looked up. He looked at the security feed and saw something that couldn't be real. A huge red dragon tearing through level 6 and heading straight for level 7. Going straight for them. Dr. Vex whispered, That's not possible." The restraints were rated 4. The building shook and his voice faded away. Something big and powerful was coming. Quickly. Dr. Vex looked truly scared for the first time since Tommy had been tied to the table. It felt like an earthquake hit the whole station. Tommy, who was still strapped to the exam table, could feel the vibrations through the metal below him. He could see Dr. Vex's face change from confident to unsure to truly scared, even though he was in a lot of pain. "Close the doors to the lab." Dr. Vex yelled at Kes. "Maximum security rules. Now." Kes's fingers moved quickly over the control pad. Heavy blast doors began to slide down over the entrances to the lab. These were thick slabs of reinforced metal meant to keep chemical leaks or explosive decompression from happening. The kind of doors that were meant to keep everything out. "Doctor, we need to leave," Kes said, his voice shaking. "The feed from security shows. I can see what it says." Dr. Vex lost it. "A dragon can't get through these doors. They can take direct hits from ship weapons. We're completely safe here. But his hands shook as he said it. Tommy weakly turned his head toward the security cameras. He could see the feed from the hallway outside, even though his vision was blurry. A huge shape was moving through level 7, and anything in its way was either melting or being pushed aside. When the dragon appeared on screen, security teams tried to set up defensive positions, but they scattered like leaves in a storm. Blaze was it? The same dragon that was up for auction. But it looked different now, both scary and beautiful. Its scales glowed so brightly that it looked like they were lit from the inside. There was smoke coming out of its body like a cape. And its eyes. Tommy could see those amber eyes burning with something that made his heart skip even through the grainy security feed. The dragon wasn't going crazy. It wasn't destroying things at random. Blaze was moving with a clear goal, ignoring side corridors and other rooms. The creature was heading straight for the lab. Right at Tommy. Tommy whispered, "It knows where I am." Dr. Vex heard him. "Not possible. Dragons are living things. Yes, they are strong animals, but they don't have that kind of intelligence or—" The lab was shaken by an explosion. The blast door on the north side lit up in red, then orange and finally white. Metal began to drip like water. "The readings for structural integrity are failing." Kess yelled and moved away from his control station. "Doctor, that door can handle 3,000 degrees. Nothing biological should be able to." The door didn't just melt away. It blew up from the inside, sending a spray of liquid metal across the floor of the lab. The droplets burned through the tiles that were supposed to be fireproof. Blaze came through the hole. The dragon had to bend down to get through the door, but once it was inside the bigger lab, it stood up straight. The top of its head almost touched the 15-foot ceiling. Partially spread wings blocked most of the room from view. The dragon's body gave off waves of heat that made the air look like it was shimmering. Tommy thought the dragon at the auction was big. He was wrong. Blaze looked big in that big room with other things to compare it to. In the lab, the dragon was too much to handle. Huge. Very old. More powerful than Tommy could have ever imagined. Dr. Vex stumbled back and almost fell over his own tools. "Stay back. I'm giving you a warning. I have defenses. I have—" The dragon's eyes were fixed on Dr. Vex, and the doctor's voice stopped. There was no denying that those amber eyes were smart. And rage. There is so much anger. But when Blaze looked at Tommy, who was strapped to the exam table, something in those eyes softened. Just a little bit. Just the right amount. "Let him go," Blaze said. Tommy's heart almost stopped. The dragon could speak. The voice was deep and resonant, like rocks grinding together deep underground, but the words were clear. Great English. Even when he was scared, Dr. Vex's scientific mind couldn't help itself. You can talk? Dragons aren't supposed to have vocal structures that can—" I said let him go. The room's temperature went up another 10 degrees. Small flames danced along Blaze's back. Kess didn't wait for directions. He ran to the exam table and started to let go of Tommy's restraints with hands that were shaking. "I'm sorry," he said quietly to Tommy. "I'm very sorry. I should have put a stop to this. I should have done something." Meanwhile, Dr. Vex had taken a neural disruptor from his equipment rack. This was one of the same tools he had been using on Tommy. But this one was bigger, so it was clear that it was for bigger things. He aimed it at Tommy's head. "One more step and I turn this on at full power," Dr. Vex said, trying to sound sure but not succeeding. "It will kill his brain right away." Blaze stopped. For a moment, all you could hear in the lab was the crackling of small fires and the hissing of metal cooling down. Blaze said softly, "You would kill a child to save yourself." It wasn't a question. "I would kill a specimen to preserve my own life, yes," Dr. Vex replied. "Now back away from—" He never finished the sentence. Blaze moved faster than anything that big should be able to. A thin, precise stream of fire shot from the dragon's mouth, so hot it was almost white. It hit the neural disruptor in Dr. Vex's hand, melting it instantly without touching the doctor himself. Dr. Vex screamed and let go of the melted pieces, holding his burned hand. He fell back, hit his control station and then fell to the floor. Kess had taken off the last of Tommy's restraints. The assistant quickly stepped back and raised his hands to show he wasn't a threat. Slowly Tommy sat up. He was in pain all over. He felt weak and dizzy and could barely stand. But his legs gave out when he tried to get down from the table. Even though the dragon was big, Blaze moved forward carefully, with each step planned and controlled. Tommy flinched when one huge claw reached out. Blaze said softly, "I won't hurt you, young one. You are safe now." The dragon's claw, which was as long as Tommy's forearm, carefully picked him up. The scales were warm, almost hot, but not too hot. They felt rough but somehow safe. Blaze picked up Tommy as easily as someone might pick up a kitten and held him against the dragon's chest. Tommy began to cry. Not because they were in pain this time, but because they were happy. From the overwhelming knowledge that someone or something had really come for him. He had heard his screams and thought they were important. He cried into dragon scales that smelled like smoke, stone, and safety and said, "Thank you. Thanks, thanks, thanks." Blaze's other claw came up and touched the top of Tommy's head very softly and carefully. "You are brave, little one. You are braver than most warriors I know." Dr. Vex was still on the floor, moaning and holding his burned hand. He looked up at Blaze with a mix of fear and disbelief. "You can't do that. The Galactic Authority will come after you for this." "Let them come," Blaze said without any extra words. The dragon then turned and looked at Kes, who immediately fell to his knees. "Please," Kes begged. "I didn't want to do any of this. I needed the job. I owe money to family. I know it's not an excuse, but please." Blaze cut in, "You were kind to hesitate. You let the child go without a fight. Now go. Get off at this station. Get a different job. Get better than what you were today." Kes didn't need to be told more than once. He ran for the door without looking back. That only left Dr. Vex. As Blaze spoke again, Tommy felt the dragon's chest rumble. "Tommy, close your eyes. Kids shouldn't see what's coming next." Tommy's eyes got bigger. "Do you know my name?" Blaze said, "I heard them use it at the auction. I've heard a lot of things through these walls. Too many things. Are you going to kill him?" Tommy asked in a low voice, not sure what he wanted to hear. Blaze said, "Justice and revenge are not the same thing. I won't kill him here in front of you. But he will have to pay for what he did." The dragon carefully put Tommy down behind an overturned equipment rack, which made it hard for the boy to get to the rest of the lab. "Stay here. Put your hands over your ears. This will end soon." Tommy did what he was told and pushed his hands hard against his ears. He still heard Dr. Vex screams though. These screams were different from Tommy's own. They sounded like someone who finally understood what they had done to others and felt guilty about it. Then nothing. When Blaze came back and picked Tommy up again, the dragon's face was sad but happy. "What about the rest?" Tommy asked, pointing to the clear cells where other test subjects were still stuck. Blaze's eyes became softer. "We will also free them. Every single one of them. But first, there are others who need to take responsibility for this." The dragon took Tommy to the broken door. Blaze stopped as they passed Dr. Vex's control station and did something that surprised Tommy. The dragon started using the holographic controls in a way that was very impressive. "Do you know how to use a computer?" Tommy asked. Blaze said, "I'm old, not dumb. I've had 300 years to learn a lot." The dragon pulled up files with names, transaction records, and communication logs. Everyone who took part in the illegal tests. Everyone who knew and didn't do anything. Everyone who had made money off of pain. Blaze whispered, "So many? So many people knew." The eyes of the dragon started to shine more. "And they will all pay." Tommy held on to Blaze's neck with his small arms, which barely reached halfway around the dragon's thick scales. The warmth coming from Blaze's body was comforting now, driving away the cold fear that had settled in his bones during those 36 terrible minutes. He could feel the dragon's heart beating, steady, strong, and old. Tommy whispered, "You saved me." "What? You don't even know who I am." Blaze carefully walked through the ruined lab, stepping over broken equipment and debris. "I know enough. I know you're young and can't do anything. I know you were in pain while I was in chains and did nothing. That's enough." "But you did come," Tommy said. "You got away and came for me." The dragon's chest rumbled, but it wasn't a growl, it was more like a sigh. 300 years too late for someone else. But it's not too late for you. Tommy didn't get what that meant, but he could tell that Blaze was sad. The dragon had something heavy inside it, but it wasn't because of how heavy it was. Everywhere, station alarms were still going off. Flashing red emergency lights made everything look strange. Automated voices kept telling everyone to get to the escape pods right away. Blaze carefully set Tommy down next to a table of overturned equipment. The dragon moved him carefully so that there was a wall of metal and machinery between Tommy and the rest of the lab. "Stay here, young one," Blaze said in a soft voice. "Shut your eyes. If you can, cover your ears." Tommy's stomach turned. "What are you going to do? What's next?" The dragon's voice was soft but firm. "Don't look at this. You have seen enough dark things for one day." Tommy looked past the barrier and saw Dr. Vex still huddled against his control station, holding his burned hand. The doctor looked pale and his eyes were wide with fear, which was probably a lot like what Tommy felt on the table. Are you going to kill him? Tommy asked in a low voice. For a long time, Blaze didn't say anything. I've killed a lot of people in my long life. Warriors who came into my land and fought. Hunters who wanted to make money by selling dragon scales. People who enslaved other creatures. But I've never killed in front of a child and I won't start now. Then what? Tommy, close your eyes, Blaze said again, this time with more force. Please. Believe me. Tommy closed his eyes and pressed his hands over his ears as hard as he could. He could hear things even through his palms. Dr. Vex screaming, equipment crashing, and something very hot making metal sizzle and pop. Then, after what seemed like forever, there was silence. He opened his eyes when he felt a soft touch on his shoulder. Blaze was back and his amber eyes looked down at him. They seemed both fierce and kind at the same time. Done, the dragon said simply. He won't hurt anyone else. Tommy couldn't see Dr. Vex anymore, even though he was looking past Blaze. He made up his mind that he didn't want to know the specifics. Blaze went to the control station that Dr. Vex had been using. The dragon's big claws moved the holographic displays with surprising accuracy, bringing up files and data that floated in the air like glowing ghosts. What are you up to? Tommy asked, getting closer with shaky legs. Learning, Blaze said. These systems keep records. Names of all the people who work here. The people who run the auction house. The people who took you as a slave. Security guards at the station who took bribes to look the other way. People in charge who gave permission for illegal tests. The dragon went through page after page of information. Tommy saw the list grow with dozens or maybe even hundreds of names. Each one stood for someone who had known what was going on here and either took part or chose to ignore it. So many people knew, Tommy said in a small voice. And no one stopped it. Blaze said, evil often wins because good people don't do anything. But that stops today. They learned today that what they do has effects. The dragon sent all the information to the station's main broadcast system and then turned back to Tommy. I need you to stay here for a little while. I have things to do. Tommy's grip on a piece of nearby equipment got stronger. Are you leaving me? Not going. Never leaving, Blaze said with a firm voice. But there are other people who need to face justice and I won't put you through what comes next. It's safe here. There is no one else in the lab right now but you. What about those? Tommy pointed to the clear cells where other test subjects were still stuck. The little alien with big eyes. The bug-like thing. He could barely see some of them in the dim emergency lights. Blaze's face relaxed. You have a good heart, young one. Yes, we will let them go. But first, I have to make sure that those who are responsible can't get away. The dragon went to each cell and carefully melted the locks without hurting the people inside. The creatures inside were weak and scared, but they knew they were being let go. They all fell out of their cells one by one. Blaze led them to the emergency exit, speaking softly and calmly. The evacuation pods are 3 hallways to the left and then straight ahead. There you will be safe. Be free. The creatures ran away and vanished into the hallway. The little alien with big eyes stopped at the door, looked back at Blaze, and made a noise that might have meant thank you in its language. Was gone too. There were only Tommy and Blaze left in the lab. Tommy said, the others who did this. The people on that list. What are you going to do with them? Blaze knelt down so that its huge head was level with Tommy's. I'm going to hunt them down. Everyone who knew about this place and let it go on. Everyone who made money off of hurting innocent people. They will face dragon fire and they will know that they have to pay some debts. Tommy said, that's a lot of people. Yes. It could take a while. Yes. Can I go with you? Blaze slowly shook its head. What I'm about to do is not something a child should see. It will be violent. Will be awful. You shouldn't see what happens to these people, even though they deserve it. Tommy thought about how long he had been on the exam table. About how Dr. Vex's happy voice made him hurt. About all the other kids who could have been brought here and who might have gone through the same thing or worse. They deserve it, Tommy said in a low voice. For what they did to me. For what they did to all of us. Maybe, Blaze said. But revenge and justice are not the same thing. Vengeance is quick, hot, and satisfying. Justice is colder. More planned. I will bring these people to justice, but I won't let it change you. You've been through enough dark times. You don't need more. The dragon stood up and walked back to the control station, where it pulled up a map of the station. There were red dots on the map that probably showed where the people on the list were. Blaze said, the auction house is still open, his voice getting angry. They're still selling people even with alarms going off. The head slaver who took you is in the cargo bay, where he is trying to load his merchandise onto a ship before everyone has to leave. There are 2 levels above the station security command, where they are counting their bribe money. Tommy looked at the red dots on the map. Each one stood for a person who had been in his nightmare. Part of many nightmares for many victims. He asked, "How long will it take?" "Not long," said Blaze. "I have a lot of drive." The dragon made a small safe space in the corner of the lab by moving things around to make walls that would keep people safe. Blaze put some emergency food and a medical kit in a storage locker inside. "Stay here," the dragon said, gently pushing Tommy into the safe area. "After I leave, lock the door. Don't let anyone else in except me. I will be back before the station is fully evacuated." "How can I be sure it's you?" Tommy said. "What if someone acts like you?" Blaze thought about this. "When I come back, I'll say, 'The small one is braver than warriors.' That's the password we use. Don't open the door if anyone else tries to get in." Tommy nodded and moved to the corner. He was tired and his body hurt from the test. But he wasn't as scared now. Blaze had come to get him. Had saved him. And now the dragon was going to make sure that no one else had to go through what he did. "Blaze?" As the dragon moved toward the broken door, Tommy yelled. The dragon turned around. "Yes, young one? Thanks. For listening to me. For being kind." In the dim light, Blaze's eyes glowed softly. "Thanks for reminding me why I promised to protect the weak. I had forgotten for too long. You have given me a reason to live again." Then the dragon opened its wings and left the lab, moving into the hallway with a scary purpose. As told, Tommy locked the door and huddled in his safe corner, listening to the sounds of chaos spreading through the station from far away. Booms. Screams. The roar of fire from a dragon. Station Vraxa 7 was going to get justice. And it burned with rage from long ago. Blaze moved through the halls of Station Vraxa 7 like a natural disaster. Unstoppable, focused, and terrifying to anyone who saw it coming. The dragon had lived for hundreds of years, which taught it things that most other creatures never learned. Be patient. Plan. And how they made space stations. Blaze didn't just sit in that cell doing nothing for months. The dragon had heard. So, he learned everything about the station's layout by listening to conversations, watching security feeds from the holding area, and just watching how people moved through the building. Now that knowledge was a weapon. The first target was very close, only 2 levels down. It's hard to believe, but the auction house where Tommy was sold was still open. Graves, a greedy Veltorian who owned the place, thought that a dragon escape wasn't enough of a reason to stop doing business. There was money to be made, and the order to leave didn't say anything about his part of the station. Blaze went down an emergency stairwell, and each step made the metal groan under the weight of the dragon. The heat around Blaze was so high that the paint on the walls peeled off as he walked by. There were 2 security guards at the entrance to the auction house. As soon as they saw Blaze coming down the hall, they raised their guns. "Stop right there. Don't move or wheel." They never followed through on their threat. Blaze didn't even stop. The first thing that hit them was a wave of heat so strong that they had to cover their faces. The dragon then just showed up and walked past them like they were kids playing soldier. Blaze's tail knocked both guards aside with one gentle sweep, but they weren't hurt badly. "I don't have a problem with you," Blaze said without turning around. "You were not on the list. Go away now." The guards didn't need to be told more than once. They ran. Blaze melted the doors of the auction house. They turned into puddles of liquid metal that hissed and steamed on the floor. The auction was going on inside. Graves stood on his platform trying to sell a teenage alien girl to a group of about 30 people. "Do I hear 8,000? 8,000 for this great example? She's young, can be trained, and is perfect for her." When Blaze walked into the room, the words died in his throat. There was no sound in the auction hall. Everyone in that room, including the buyers, guards, and even the other slaves waiting in cages, stopped what they were doing and looked at the dragon that had just crashed their illegal party. In less than 2 seconds, Graves' face went from confident to scared. "Now, just a second. I'm sure we can come to an agreement. I have cash. A lot of money. I can do anything you want." Blaze calmly walked up and said, "You sold a child today." The floor shook with every step. "Tommy is a boy. 9 years old. Afraid. By myself. That was just business. It's not personal. I sell to the person who offers the most money. It's not my fault what they do with what they buy." Blaze's eyes got smaller. "You made it your job to make money off of other people's pain. You turned kids into things to sell. And you're right about one thing, it wasn't personal. Up until now." Graves tried to get away. He got maybe 5 steps before Blaze's tail came out and blocked his way. The dragon didn't attack or breathe fire, it just stood over the scared Veltorian. "Please," Graves begged. "I'll let everyone go. Look, I'm letting the animals out of their cages." He pushed buttons on his control pad like crazy. The doors to the cages clicked open all over the auction house. Blaze said dryly, "How nice. Letting slaves go only when a dragon is about to attack you. You have really changed." The people who had been freed didn't wait to see what would happen next. They ran for the doors and disappeared into the station's hallways. Blaze let them go and only paid attention to Graves. "The Galactic Authority will find out about this," Graves yelled, trying to sound brave but failing completely. "You can't just go after people who follow the law." "Following the law?" Blaze's voice turned into a dangerous rumble. "There are 17 galactic laws against the trade of living beings. You have broken every one of them. Graves, you are a lot of things, but following the law is not one of them." Blaze made sure that what happened next happened quickly. The auction house had great fire suppression systems, but they were only meant to put out normal fires. Not fire from a dragon. The whole building was on fire in a matter of minutes. When Blaze came back into the hallway, the auction house was in ruins. There was nothing left but ash and metal that had melted. There would never be another sale there. Next up, the cargo bay. Blaze thought about the station map. The cargo bay was on the lower levels, close to the docking ports. The files that the dragon had downloaded said that was where the Korthian slavers worked. The same people who took Tommy from his home colony. The dragon sped up and took shortcuts through maintenance tunnels that wouldn't normally fit a creature Blaze's size. But when you could melt through things, tight spaces weren't as big of a deal. People living near the station saw Blaze going through different parts and hurried to get out of the way. Most of them weren't on the list. They were just regular workers doing regular jobs. Blaze didn't pay any attention to them. The dragon was completely focused. 3 Korthian brothers were trying to load cages onto a transport ship in the cargo bay. There were at least 20 prisoners inside the cages. They were humans, aliens, and even some animals that looked like they had been taken from wildlife preserves. The biggest Korthian yelled, "Hurry up. We have to leave this station before." He stopped when he saw Blaze come in through the main door for cargo. Blaze ripped the door wider because it was too small, tearing metal like paper. "Before what?" Blaze asked in a friendly way. "Before the dragon gets to you?" "Too late." The 3 brothers got their hands on real military-grade plasma rifles. These weren't regular security guards with guns. These were professional criminals with a lot of guns. They all shot at the same time. The plasma bolts lit up the cargo bay. Each one had enough power to break through a ship's hull. Blaze walked through the barrage as if it were a light rain. The plasma couldn't get through the dragon's superheated scales and disappeared. One bolt came very close to Blaze's face, but the dragon casually breathed out a small puff of fire that burned up the plasma before it could hit. "Not possible," one brother yelled. "Plasma fire destroys everything." Blaze said, "I'm not nothing. I am old. I am flesh made of fire. And I'm really, really mad." The Korthians tried to escape by breaking up and going in different directions. At first, Blaze let them go, but not to get away. First, the dragon went to the cages where it melted the locks and let the people inside go. Blaze said, "The evacuation pods are 3 decks up. Go. Be free. Tell other people what happened here." They ran away and Blaze went after the slavers. The first brother had gotten to an escape shuttle. When Blaze found him, he was trying to start the launch sequence in a hurry. The dragon didn't kill him right away. Instead, it melted the shuttle's control panel, trapping him inside. Blaze said through the shuttle's window, "You're one of the people who took Tommy from his home. You took a child away from his family. They sold him to a torturer. How much did you get paid?" 20,000 credits, the Korthian said in a loud voice. "We got 20,000 for raiding the human colony. We had no idea what would happen to them. We just caught and delivered." Blaze said, "You didn't know because you didn't care. You think of people as things that can be bought and sold. Let me show you how things feel when they are in a place where they can't get away from the heat." The shuttle turned into an oven. Blaze didn't look, he just went on to find the next brother. The second and third Korthians had locked themselves in a storage room, thinking that the strong walls would keep them safe. They were wrong. Blaze melted the wall like it was made of butter, making a door big enough for a dragon. "Please," they all begged. "We'll return all the money. We'll give ourselves up. Just don't." "How many families have you hurt?" Blaze cut in. "How many kids have you taken? How many lives have you ruined to make money?" There was no answer from them. Or maybe they had too many answers and didn't want to say them out loud. You gave the supply, Blaze said, repeating what he had said before. You made all of this possible. You made every experiment, every torture, and every death that happened because of your captures possible. Their tomb was the storage room. Panic had completely taken over the station by now. Everyone who wasn't on Blaze's list was running to get to the evacuation pods. People on the list were either trying to hide or trying to get away as fast as they could. None of them would be able to do it. Blaze had gotten the whole station manifest. The dragon knew exactly who lived where, worked where, and hid where. 300 years of living had taught Blaze to be patient and to get things done quickly. The hunt would be very thorough. Next stop, Level 9, the administrative offices. There were a number of station officials who had taken bribes to turn a blind eye to the illegal activities. They were there trying to destroy evidence and move money to accounts outside the country. Blaze went that way, leaving behind a trail of melted metal and evil that had been put out. The hunt had just begun. Captain Morris was sitting in the command chair of the GSS Defender, 3 star systems away, going over routine patrol reports. It was supposed to be a quiet shift, just looking for trash, checking shipping manifests, and doing the same boring things that made up 90% of Galactic Security's work. Then the emergency signal went off. Captain, his communications officer yelled. Priority distress call from Station Vraxa, 7. Code Black. Morris sat up straight. Code Black meant the worst possible situation. A lot of people hurt, an emergency at the station, and an immediate response needed. What is going on? Sir, you won't believe this. The officer's voice shook a little. They're saying there's a dragon. A red dragon that is fully grown. It's hunting people at the station. The bridge was quiet. Everyone looked at the communication station as if they had heard wrong. A dragon? Morris said it again. That's not possible. There are no dragons in this area. Most of them died out hundreds of years ago. Sir, we're getting a live video feed. I'm putting it on the big screen. The main screen on the bridge came to life and showed footage from the security cameras at Station Vraxa, 7. And there, right in front of me, was a huge red dragon walking down a hallway. The scales shone like metal that had been heated. There was smoke coming from its body. It was also moving with terrifying intelligence, not destroying things at random but hunting with a goal. Morris saw the dragon get closer to a fancy room. A well-dressed Veltorian stumbled out of the door with his hands up in surrender. Please, the Veltorian begged over the audio feed. I know people. Power. I can make you rich beyond. I don't want money, the dragon's voice came through the speakers. Everyone on the Defender's bridge shivered, even though they could see it on the security feed. I want you to know what you've done. What have I done? I'm a real business person. I have real estate. I follow all the rules. The dragon said calmly, you own this station. You let auctions happen that were against the law. Experiments that are against the law. Moving living things around. All the while making money and ignoring the problem. The Veltorian's face turned white. That was just business. I didn't hurt anyone myself. You made it possible for it to happen. You made money off of their pain. That means you are responsible. Morris had to turn away from what happened next. The fire in the luxury suite was so hot that it broke the lens of the security camera. When the smoke cleared, the suite was gone, leaving only a blackened hole where it used to be. How many people are definitely dead? Morris asked, his voice tense. His tactical officer looked over the reports that were coming in. Sir, there are 47 confirmed casualties. But here's the weird part. Every single victim is linked to illegal activities. People who sell slaves, corrupt officials, and people who run the black market. The dragon hasn't hurt anyone who wasn't guilty. Morris frowned. Give me the list of dead. As he went through the names, a picture began to take shape. All of the people who died were involved in the station's black market, which included human trafficking, illegal experiments, bribery, and extortion. Some of them had been wanted by Galactic Authority for years, but they always found ways to get away with it using legal loopholes and expensive lawyers. Morris said, it's not random. The dragon is killing them. Every person on this list should have had to go to court. But not death, sir, his first officer said. We have rules. Processes. Morris said, we do. But our laws didn't stop this from happening. They were able to get away with it for years because they knew how to work the system. The video feed changed to a different place, a cargo bay where the dragon was letting prisoners out of cages. The freed prisoners ran for the doors, and the dragon turned to chase 3 Corthians with guns. The dragon is freeing slaves, the tactical officer said. Sir, I think it's trying to help. Morris said, it's trying to bring justice. At least its own version of it. Another warning showed up on the screen. Captain, there's a new message coming in from the station. It's on all channels including civilian, military, commercial and everything else. The signal is going out to more than one star system. Who is sending it? According to the source tag, the Dragon, sir. Morris's blood froze. Go ahead and do it. The main screen changed once more. This time they didn't see security footage. They saw a live feed from the station's broadcast center. The room was partly ruined and the equipment was smoking and sparking. Blaze stood in the middle of the frame, both beautiful and scary at the same time. Blaze, last of the true fire, the dragon's voice echoed through all the Defender's speakers. That same voice was speaking on thousands of worlds and hundreds of ships all over the galaxy. I have walked alone for 300 years. I have stayed away from your civilizations, your politics, and your wars. I just wanted peace. As it went on, the dragon's eyes got brighter. But there can't be peace when there is injustice. You have built systems that treat the weak like things for generations. You have forgotten what dragons used to know. Protecting the innocent is not a choice. That's what you have to do. Everyone on the bridge was completely quiet. Morris saw that his hands were gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Blaze went on, today I saw a child being tortured. I heard him scream for 36 minutes. For 36 minutes I did nothing because you thought the chains were unbreakable. But there are times when it's worth breaking free. Some debts must be paid. The camera angle changed a little, making the ruined broadcast center easier to see. I have burned down everything the guilty built on this station. 47 people who made money off of other people's pain have been punished by the law. Their deaths were not by chance. They weren't for revenge. They were the result. Morris saw the dragon look right through the camera, as if it could see everyone in the galaxy who was watching. Blaze said, let this station be a memorial. Not because I have power but because you failed. There were laws against trafficking. Not torture. Against hurting those who can't help themselves. But here, at this station, everything happened in plain sight. What? Because it was hard to enforce. Because they took bribes. Because it was easier to ignore. The whole frame was filled with the dragon's wings. Not anymore. I won't go back to being alone while kids scream in the dark. I am awake now. I am seeing. And I will go where innocence is sold like goods. Wherever the weak are hurt and the strong make money. Morris felt a shiver go down his back. This wasn't a threat from a mindless animal. This was a statement of purpose from an intelligence that had been around for hundreds of years. To those who trade in lives, I'm coming. Blaze's voice dropped to a growl that shook the air. I'm watching those who ignore cries for help because it's not convenient. If you think that power and money put you above justice, you're wrong. The dragon turned around and left the picture. The last thing the camera saw before the transmission ended was Blaze's tail, which left a trail of smoke through the ruined broadcast center. After the transmission ended, the bridge of the Defender stayed quiet for a long time. Morris finally got up. Helm, set the ship's course for Station Vraxa, 7 at full speed. All hands to battle stations. Sir, his first officer said slowly. What is the goal of our mission? Are we going to fight the dragon? Morris thought about his kids who were at home. About the stories he read them at night about heroes who protected the weak. He had taken an oath when he joined Galactic Security to protect and serve all living things. We're going to look at the situation, he said finally. And if that dragon is still there when we get there, we'll have a very interesting talk. The Defender sped up to faster-than-light speed and raced toward Station Vraxa 7. The dragon's message was spreading like wildfire behind them, across many star systems. It was picked up by news networks. People on social media went crazy with their reactions. All over the world, criminal groups suddenly had something new to worry about. Slavers and traffickers in the dark corners of a dozen worlds watched the broadcast and felt something they hadn't felt in years. Fear. Because a dragon was watching from somewhere. And it remembered everything. Back on Station Vraxa 7, Blaze went back to the lab where Tommy was waiting. The dragon had one more stop to make before it was done, but first it had to check on the kid. The little one who had told Blaze that some things were worth fighting for. The little one who, without meaning to, had given an old dragon a reason to care again. Before going back to Tommy, Blaze had one more target. The dragon climbed up the station's central access shaft, heading up toward the control center for the administration. The administrators who made everything possible lived here, not the scientists or the slavers. The control center took up the whole top floor of the station. It had walls that were stronger, backup power systems, and security measures that were meant to keep it safe from anything from hull breaches to armed uprisings. The people inside thought they were safe. They were wrong. Dr. Rebecca Harris was at her desk in the main control room, quickly deleting files from the station's database. She was the chief medical administrator, which meant she was in charge of all research permits. Her signature was on the approval forms for every illegal test, every act of torture, and every experiment that Dr. Vex had done. "Get rid of everything to do with Project Threshold," she yelled at her assistant. "All records, all backups, and all logs of communication. I don't want any proof that we knew what was going on in those labs." Peter, a young man who worked for her, was shaking as he did his job. "Dr. Harris, maybe we should just leave. The dragon has already killed close to 50 people. It's clearly going after anyone who is." "I didn't have anything to do with it." Harris lost it. "I signed some papers. That's it. I did everything the right way when it came to administration. That's his fault if Vex chose to abuse his research permissions." Peter didn't say anything, but the look on his face said he didn't believe her. Harris saw it and her face got hard. "Pay attention to what I'm saying," she said in a cold voice. "I've spent 30 years building my career. I'm not going to let a big lizard ruin everything I've worked for just because a few illegal experiments went too far." "Some experiments?" Peter's voice broke. "Dr. Harris, we have records of more than 300 people who took the test in the last 2 years. A lot of them died. Some of them were kids." "Specimens?" Harris said without thinking. "Not test subjects. Samples. And it was hard to tell what their legal status was. We took advantage of every gap in galactic law. Everything we did was technically." The wall blew up from the inside. "Not melted. Not on fire." Boom. Blaze tore through the supposedly impenetrable barrier like it was made of cardboard, sending pieces of reinforced metal flying across the control room. Peter yelled and dove under his desk. Other people in the control room ran for the exits in a panic, leaving their posts behind. Harris stood there, frozen, staring at the huge red dragon that had just crashed into her carefully planned world. Blaze's eyes were fixed on her. Dr. Rebecca Harris. Head of Medical Administration. 53 years old. 3 master's degrees. A lot of experience over the past 30 years. And the person who gave the green light for every experiment that took place on this station. Harris's mouth got dry. I only filled out forms. I didn't do any of them myself." "You knew what those forms allowed," Blaze said as he slowly walked forward. The floor groaned with each step. "You read the proposals for research. You saw the number of deaths and injuries, but you still approved them. It was okay." Harris yelled and backed up until she hit her desk. "Everything was written down. We did things the right way. We did take advantage of gaps in the law, but we didn't technically break any. Legal and moral are not the same thing." The simple phrase hung in the air like a death sentence. Harris looked into the dragon's eyes and saw something that scared her more than the fire, the claws, or the obvious strength. She saw a decision. "Those specimens were gotten through the right channels," Harris tried again, her voice getting more and more desperate. "They were bought in a legal way. We paid prices that were fair for the market." Blaze said, "You paid to hurt kids. You hid behind rules and paperwork while innocent people screamed. You told yourself that writing things down made it okay." Harris's legs gave out and she fell into her chair. "What do you want from me?" Blaze said, "The truth. For once in your sad career, be honest. Did you know what was going on in those labs?" There was a long silence between them. Harris didn't want to look at those burning amber eyes. Instead, he looked at the floor, the ceiling, and the wall that had been destroyed. "Yes," she finally said. "Yes, I knew." "Did you make money from it?" Another break. Then in a quieter voice, "Yes." "Have you ever thought about stopping it?" Harris looked up this time and her face showed something like defiance. "What would it have changed? If I had said no, they would have just found someone else to do the job. The system would have gone on with or without me. At least this way I could keep an eye on things and make sure they didn't go too far." "Too far?" Blaze's voice turned into a dangerous growl. For 36 minutes, they tortured a 9-year-old child with neural disruptors. At what point exactly would that have been too far for you? Harris didn't know what to say. Harris pressed back against her desk as Blaze got closer. There was nowhere else to go. But the dragon didn't fight back. Blaze instead turned toward the main control station, which was where the station's broadcast equipment was. Blaze told him to get up. "You're going to help me send a message." "What kind of message?" Harris asked with a shaky voice. "The truth. Everything. What went down at this station. Who knew? Who made money? Who turned away? All of it." Harris shook her head a lot. That's not something I can do. It would ruin my job. I'd be charged with a crime. I could go to jail. Blaze said, you will definitely go to jail. Do you want to do it with some dignity, or do you want me to drag you there in chains after I turn this whole level into an inferno? Make your choice quickly. Harris looked around the control room as if he was hoping for help, but Peter and the other admins were long gone. She was alone with a dragon that had already killed 47 people and didn't seem to be stopping. What do I have to do? She asked in a quiet voice. Turn on the main broadcast array. Full power. All channels, including emergency, military, civilian, and commercial. I want this message to get to every part of this sector. Harris's hands shook as she walked over to the control panel. She typed in her authorization codes and turned on the broadcast system. The station's communications array powered up to full output, and warning lights went off. It's done, she said. But I don't know what you want me to do. Blaze cut in and said, you don't need to say anything. Just stand there and look like you're ashamed. I will take care of the rest. The dragon moved in front of the main camera so that the lens could see all of it. Harris was off to the side where he could be seen but not the main focus. As the broadcast went live, Blaze's eyes got brighter. Across 3 star systems, on hundreds of worlds, and in thousands of ships, screens came to life with an emergency broadcast override. News networks had to stop their regular shows. The entertainment channels went dark and were replaced by the feed from Station Vraxa 7. The signal even reached military ships. Everyone saw the same thing, a huge red dragon with eyes that burned with old fire standing in a ruined control room. The dragon's voice reached billions of beings at once as it said, I am Blaze, last of the true fire. I have lived alone for 300 years. I saw your societies change, your technologies improve, and your civilizations grow. I thought that maybe you had learned from your past mistakes. The angle of the camera was just right. You could see every scale, every wisp of smoke, and every bit of power and age in the dragon's presence. Blaze went on, I was wrong. I learned today that you have made new ways to be cruel. More effective. More money-making. More carefully hidden behind rules, laws, and paperwork that make you think you're civilized. Harris flinched when the dragon pointed with one claw at him. This is Dr. Rebecca Harris. For the past 30 years, she has signed forms giving permission for experiments on living things. She knew what those forms let her do. She knew that kids were in pain. She knew that innocent people were dying. And she signed anyway because it was the law. Because it was done the right way. Harris began to cry without making a sound, and billions of people saw the tears on her face. Blaze said, a child named Tommy was tortured for 36 minutes on this station. Not as a punishment. Not for any crime. But only for research. For information. For science. He yelled for help, but no one came. No one but me. The dragon's voice got colder and harder. I broke free from restraints that were meant to keep me there forever. I tracked down everyone who was to blame. Today, 47 people have died, including slave owners, torturers, corrupt officials, and administrators who signed the papers and counted the money. None of them were innocent. Across the galaxy, people reacted in very different ways. Some beings yelled. Others were horrified. A lot of people were so shocked that they couldn't speak. This station will be a memorial, Blaze said. A reminder that some debts need to be paid. That justice is still there even when the law doesn't work. That old gods still look out for the weak. The dragon's wings spread out so far that they filled the whole camera frame. To those who trade in lives, know that I am coming. To those who make money off of other people's pain, I am watching. If you think that paperwork makes you not responsible, you're wrong. Blaze turned and looked right into the camera, and it seemed like the dragon was looking at each person who was watching. I won't go back to sleep while kids are screaming in the dark. This is my promise, made in front of witnesses all over the universe. Let those who hurt the innocent be afraid. The time of dragons is still going on. It has just been waiting. The transmission stopped suddenly, leaving billions of viewers speechless. Captain Morris looked at the blank screen where the dragon's message had been on the bridge of the GSS Defender. His knuckles were white as he held on to the armrests. ETA to Station Vraxa 7? He asked in a low voice. Sir, 40 minutes. Okay. I have to meet this dragon. And I have to choose between a hero and a criminal. The ship sped through space toward a fight that was not certain. The dragon's message echoed in hearts and minds across countless worlds, changing everything. Tommy sat in the safe part of the lab, hugging his knees to his chest. His body still hurt from the tests, but the pain was getting better. The fear stayed with him. The deep, awful fear that Dr. Vex might come back, or that someone worse might find him, or that Blaze wouldn't come back as promised. He counted the seconds. 10, 20, 30. Everyone felt like an hour. Then he heard it, footsteps that were heavy in the hallway outside. Something big was approaching. Tommy's heart raced in his chest. He pushed himself deeper into the corner, behind the broken equipment that Blaze had set up to keep him safe. Outside the locked lab door, the footsteps stopped. Tommy? Blaze's voice echoed through the metal. I have come back. The little one is braver than warriors. The code. Tommy was so happy he almost cried. He rushed out from behind the equipment and ran to unlock the door. His hands were shaking so badly that it took him 3 tries to get it open. Blaze was still glowing faintly from the heat when the door slid open. Even though it was very powerful, the dragon looked tired. Those amber eyes held something heavy, not regret but the weight of what had happened. Tommy's voice broke as he said, "You came back." "Yes, I promised I would," Blaze said softly. "I don't break promises to kids anymore." Tommy hugged the dragon's leg, which was the only part he could reach. He put his face against the warm scales and began to cry. This time, not because of pain or fear but because of overwhelming relief. Someone cared enough to come back for him. Blaze slowly lowered its head and lightly touched Tommy's hair with the tip of one claw. "You're safe now, little one. They're all gone. They can't hurt you or anyone else again." "How many?" Tommy asked in a low voice. "Everyone who was to blame," Blaze said. "Some fought, some begged, and some tried to explain what they had done. But none of them understood until the very end that actions have consequences." Tommy was quiet for a moment while he thought about this. "Does that mean you're a bad person? Killing them, I mean." Blaze thought about the question carefully. "I don't know if dragons can be good or bad the way you think they can. We just are. But I will say this, I'm not sorry for what I did. They made their own choices and got what they deserved." Tommy said, "The Galactic Authority won't see it that way." He had heard enough grown-up talk to know how the law worked. "People will come after you." Blaze said, "They already are. I can see a military ship coming. It won't be long now." Tommy's hand got tighter around the dragon's leg. "What will happen to you?" "I don't know. But I won't let them break us up." "Us?" Tommy looked up at the glowing amber eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Blaze lay down on the floor, putting its huge head at the same level as Tommy's. "You don't have any family left. The slavers killed them when they attacked your colony. I looked through the records while I was hunting. I'm sorry, young one, but you're the only one in this galaxy." Tommy had a feeling that was true, but hearing it confirmed made him feel different than the experiments had. "What's going to happen to me? Am I going to an orphanage or the system?" "No," Blaze said with determination. "You can stay with me if you want. I can't replace your family or give you a normal life, but I can protect you, teach you, and make sure no one ever hurts you again." "You mean it?" Tommy asked in a small, hopeful voice that was afraid to believe. "Would you really keep me?" "I failed to protect someone I loved 300 years ago," Blaze said quietly. "I've carried that failure with me ever since. When I heard you screaming today, I heard echoes of that old pain. I can't change the past, but I can choose differently now. Yes, Tommy, I mean it. We are bound now if you will have me." Tommy didn't even think about it. "Yes, I want to stay with you." "Then it's settled," Blaze said as he stood up slowly so as not to wake Tommy. "But first we have to deal with what's coming next. The Galactic Authority ship will be here soon, and they will want to arrest me. Are you going to fight them?" "Only if they make me. I don't want to hurt people who are just doing their jobs, but I won't let them separate us, and I won't let myself be caged again." The station's communication system came to life just in time. "Attention Station Vraxa, 7, a voice that sounded like it belonged to a professional said. "This is Captain Morris of the Galactic Security Ship Defender. We are getting close to your location and will dock in 15 minutes. All remaining personnel must evacuate to the Central Plaza for safety and accountability." Blaze looked down at Tommy. "Are you able to walk?" Tommy checked out his legs. They were shaky but still worked. "I think so." "Okay. We'll meet them in the plaza. It's time to see if your leaders care about justice or just following the rules." The dragon took Tommy through the broken station to the main plaza. They saw the damage Blaze had done along the way, melted doors, burned walls, and the remains of the auction house. Tommy saw everything, but he wasn't scared. With Blaze by his side, even the signs of violence seemed more like protection than a threat. There weren't many people in the plaza when they got there. A few workers at the station huddled together in one corner, clearly scared and with nowhere else to go. When they saw Blaze come in, they pressed themselves against the wall. Blaze told them, "I won't hurt you. You weren't on the list, so you're safe." They didn't seem convinced, but they stayed. Tommy and Blaze stood in the middle of the plaza and waited. They could see the GSS Defender coming through the big windows. It was a sleek military ship with a lot of weapons on it. It docked with a loud thud that shook the whole station. A few minutes later, the airlock opened and soldiers came out, at least 50 of them, all armed and armored. They spread out in a tactical formation with their weapons ready but not aimed. An older man in a captain's uniform came up behind them, with 2 officers on either side of him. Captain Morris stepped forward and stopped about 20 feet from Blaze. He had his hand on his sidearm but hadn't drawn it yet. He said in a formal tone, "I am Captain Morris of Galactic Security. Hi, I'm here to look into reports of several murders and damage to the station. I assume you're the dragon everyone has been talking about." The dragon said, "I am Blaze. And I didn't kill anyone. I killed 47 criminals who were working on this station with the full knowledge and permission of corrupt administrators." "There is a difference." Morris's jaw got tight. "You can't just decide who's guilty and carry out executions. That's not how the law works. We have courts, trials, and procedures." "Your procedures didn't work," Blaze said calmly. "For years this station bought and sold children and tortured them in labs. Your laws were there but they weren't followed. Your system had holes big enough for a cargo ship to go through. So I brought a different kind of justice, the old kind where actions have immediate consequences. That's chaos and vigilantism. If everyone took justice into their own hands, then maybe the people in charge would have a reason to actually enforce the laws that are supposed to protect the weak," Blaze said. "Captain, please tell me how many reports your group got about illegal activities on this station." Morris thought for a moment. "That's secret information." Blaze said, "I already know the answer. 17 formal complaints in the last 3 years. All of them were thrown out because there wasn't enough evidence or there were problems with jurisdiction. Meanwhile, hundreds of people died in those labs." The captain didn't say anything in response. His lack of words was enough of an answer. Tommy, who had been quiet until now, stepped up. His voice was soft but steady. "They hurt me for 36 minutes just to get information. No one came to help me. No one except Blaze." Morris really looked at Tommy and seemed to see him for the first time. A small, thin, and bruised child in a medical gown stands next to a dragon because he has nowhere else to go. Morris asked softly, "What's your name, son?" "Tommy. Tommy Chin." Tommy stopped and then corrected himself. "Just Tommy. The slavers killed my family." Morris's face changed. He had 2 daughters at home. He saw them in the face of this boy. Morris said softly, "I'm sorry that happened to you." Then he turned his head and looked at Blaze. "What now? What are your plans?" Blaze said, "I'm going to take Tommy somewhere safe. Somewhere far away from your red tape and legal loopholes. Somewhere I can teach him how to be strong and survive. Then, when he is grown and trained, we will go back to protect those who can't protect themselves." "I can't let you just leave," Morris said, but his voice didn't sound sure. "You've killed more than one person. You need to be held accountable." "Then make me responsible," Blaze said. "Put me in jail. Put me on trial. But know that if you try to cage me, I will break free. And if you try to take this child away from me, I will go through your whole ship to stop it. Captain, I give you this choice. Let us go in peace or start a fight you can't win." The soldiers got tense and raised their weapons a little. Morris raised a hand and told them to stop shooting. Tommy looked up at the captain with eyes full of fear. "Please don't take Blaze away. Blaze is all I have left. Without Blaze, I'm all alone." Morris felt worse about those words than any threat the dragon could have made. He thought about his girls. They were alone and scared, holding on to the only thing that could protect them. He thought about the 47 people who had died. They were all wanted for crimes. They all used the system to get away with their crimes. He thought about the 17 complaints that had been ignored. The kids who had to deal with the slow-moving bureaucracy. Captain Morris finally made up his mind. "Stand down," he told his troops. "Sir?" one officer said in protest. "We have permission to use deadly force if—" Morris's voice was sharp when he said, "I said stand down." He looked back at Blaze and Tommy. "Go. Take the kid and leave this station. Get out of here before I change my mind." Blaze's eyes got a little bigger. Maybe this was the first time in hundreds of years that the dragon had really been surprised. "Are you letting us go?" "I'm making a tactical choice that more violence won't help," Morris said carefully. "And I'm writing in my report that the main suspect ran away before we could arrest him. What happens next is up to you, the kid, and your conscience." Tommy's face lit up with hope. "Really? We can go?" Morris looked at the boy and felt something in his chest twist. "Yeah, kid. You can go. But. He stopped and took a small data chip out of his pocket. Here, take this. It has some basic navigation coordinates to safe zones and outposts where you won't be bothered. It also has my personal contact code so you can reach me if you need help or if things go wrong. Blaze took the chip with surprising care, making sure not to crush it with his dragon claws. Captain Morris, you are a good man. The galaxy would be better off if there were more people like you in charge. Maybe, Morris said. Or maybe I'm just sick of seeing kids get hurt while adults hide behind paperwork. Either way, this conversation never happened. Officially, you got away before we could catch you. Blaze nodded slowly. Okay, I get it. Thank you, Captain. Really? The dragon turned around and left, and Tommy walked next to it to the area where smaller ships were docked. But before they could go very far, Morris called out again. Dragon. Blaze. Blaze turned around. Morris said, that message you sent out. About keeping an eye on the weak and making things right when the law doesn't. Did you mean it? Every word, Blaze said. Good. Morris looked serious but determined. Because there are a lot of other stations like this one. A lot of other kids need someone to hear them scream. Blaze's eyes got even brighter. I know. And they will be heard. This is my promise, Captain. I will never again ignore the cries of the innocent. Dragon and child then left the plaza. They found a small transport ship that had been left behind during the evacuation. It wasn't anything special, but it worked. Blaze had to squeeze into the cargo hold, but he did fit. Tommy was in the pilot's seat, but he didn't know how to use the controls very well. Blaze walked him through the basics, and the dragon's 300 years of knowledge came in handy once more. Tommy looked back at the damaged building through the viewport as they took off from Station Vraxa 7. There had been so much going on there. A lot of pain. But also his rescue. His saving. He asked Blaze, where are we going? First, a place where you can heal well, the dragon said from the cargo hold. Then I'll find a place to teach you. And eventually we'll find a place to help others. Will people be afraid of us? Yes, Blaze said honestly. A dragon and a human child traveling together will get people's attention. Some will be scared of us, some will hate us, and some will hope. That hope will lead us to those who need our help. Tommy smiled for the first time in weeks. I like that. Being someone who gives people hope. As their ship sped away from the station at faster-than-light speed, something strange started happening all over the galaxy. Criminal groups began to let their prisoners go. Illegal research centers stopped doing business. Slavers looked back to see if anyone was watching them. A dragon was flying through the stars. And it remembered everything. Over the next few weeks, news stories started to come out. A dragon and a human child were seen on the edge of the outer rim, freeing workers from an illegal mining operation. The same two people showing up on a border world and shutting down a trafficking ring. Always with each other. Always keeping the weak safe. Blaze and Tommy made their home in an old cave system on a distant planet that was far from civilized space. Tommy learned how to hunt, stay alive, fight when he had to, and show mercy when he could from the dragon. Tommy taught Blaze how to laugh again, how to find joy in small things, and how to remember what it meant to care. Tommy would sleep at night with his back against Blaze's warm scales, safe and sound. The dragon would keep an eye on things, its amber eyes scanning the stars and ready to move if someone needed help. Blaze? Tommy asked one night about 6 months after they got away. Yes, young one? Do you think my parents would be proud of what we're doing? For a moment, Blaze was quiet. Then he said softly, I think your parents would be proud that you made it through. That you found strength in the dark. That you chose to use your pain to help others instead of letting it consume you. Yes, Tommy. I think they would be very proud. Tommy smiled and closed his eyes, falling asleep. Stars twinkled in the sky above them. Someone was crying for help somewhere out there. Someone was in pain but didn't say anything. Someone needed a dragon who knew what justice really meant. Blaze would hear them when they called out into the dark. Because the time of dragons was not over. It was just waiting for the right time to come back. And that reason was Tommy. The little one who was braver than soldiers. The child who had told an old dragon that some things were worth fighting for. They would work together to make sure that no child ever had to scream alone in the dark again.